Alright everybody, we're here back with Maid With Perfection for NaNoRenO 2015. I am JP the Third with VNsNow.com. So let's get started with this one. We're on day 4. Let's see what happens. I woke up the next day and stretched yawning. I looked at the time, 9:30. No, it is 4 o'clock. That's what it says right there. That joke is old now, isn't it? I woke up early. As a knock appeared on my door, I looked to my door and said enter, knowing it was Karolyn. Karolyn entered the room with a tray covered in delicious breakfast food, and I, of course, ate every last bit with happiness. However, as I finished, Karolyn looked at me and surprised me. Oh my god, are we actually going to have something plot-related happen? Wow.
Master, may I ask you something?
Huh? Sure. What's up?
Do you like me serving you?
Huh? What kind of question was that? Of course I loved her serving me. Not that she was like a servant or whatever. Technically, yes, she is. But she kept the house clean and was fighting to stay with me. She became important to me. You barely know her. I know what I want to say. I'm trying to figure out the best answer though. Because I'm again trying to get the best one here, but I'm really curious to see the answer to this. Okay, so okay, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna save it right quick, and I'm gonna come back and redo it just to see if the other one is interesting. We'll go back to that one. Karolyn looked at me before blushing wildly. What? Was her reason bad? She shook her head and looked up at me nervously.
You see, I guess you interested me, Master.
You don't know me.
I interested you?
Yeah, and I kind of think you're cute. I, hope you don't mind.
Yeah. I gotta do... I don't know. What kind of asshole would come to this scene and press, I'm sorry. The main character themselves have been saying over and over again this entire game about how cute they find this girl. There's only one right answer to that, unless you're just a jerk and you want to see what the bad end is. Her face turned red again as she fiddled with the hem of her dress. She looked even cuter than before. I almost wanted to pull her over and hug her. However, my mind ran back to the fight between Red and Karolyn. That's right, she had to focus on winning the fight. Now was not the time for flirting and calling each other cute. Karolyn bowed to me and asked me to instruct her for the day. What should Karolyn do for the first half of the day? She didn't clean yesterday, did she? I don't think she did, so clean first. So I'd have her clean first, and she took a bucket of cleaning supplies and cleaned the bathroom today. I trusted Karolyn to clean everything up to par with how maids were supposed to clean the house. Again, not doing anything myself because I am a lazy bum. As the afternoon started to approach for Karolyn reappeared at my door with lunch. How she managed to balance everything was a little fuzzy, but I trusted her to do her best. She's stronger than you. That would be why. What should Karolyn do for the second half of the day? Clean again, just to be sure. I decided to have her clean again. Clean the bathrooms again. Trusted Karolyn, blah blah blah. After the day started to end, she fixed me dinner. I yawned and went to bed myself. Okay, day 5. Day 5. I woke up to hear Karolyn knocking at my door. Despite me not doing anything while I lived here other than play video games, I got to sleep a lot. Karolyn brought in my breakfast and awaited my instructions. Train, since you did all that cleaning. I decided to have her train. Karolyn not excused herself, leaving the room. Out of curiosity, I decided to find Karolyn to watch a bit on how she trained. She had been training hard, and I was curious. She was a soldier after all. Would she be doing laps? Would she be hitting a punching bag? Okay, let me just... If you're just going to have an edgy game, this is probably more than effective. Just because it's not completely in your face, but it's subtext. It's subtextual edginess. So, if you're just going to have it... Hold on, let me see if I can hide the bar. Yeah, see... There you go. That's really, and I know I'm I'm a prude and I'm proud of it. But if you're just gonna have ecchi artwork in a game, you want it to be, in my opinion, subtextual. So it can be, if you really just wanted to interpret it in a way other than clean, you can, like, again, you can basically, this girl's riding up her thighs, her body's positioned in a way where her chest is jutting out. That works. You don't have to be over the top and in your face. But again, that's just me, and again, I'm prudish, so I don't intend to hide that fact about me. She wasn't far. She was in the middle of the lobby doing complete sit-ups on the floor. I couldn't really stare as she continued to pull her upper body off the ground and up before letting it go back down again. She was doing this in a tight-fitted corset dress. How? Then I remembered that she was a trained soldier. This was probably in her training. Can you imagine being in a parliamentary committee hearing or congressional committee hearing, and the director of this program is trying to explain this expense? Yeah, we had to buy 100 corsets so our soldiers could train in them to get used to doing this in the program that you're paying for to protect and assassinate other world leaders and assets. I'm just saying, that would have been fun to watch on C-SPAN. I watched as she did 10, 20, 30. By 40, she was getting a staggered breath. 50 brought soft sweat. I had to admire her dedication. She looked so determined to get stronger and better. I felt kind of flattered in a strange way. I decided to leave her alone. I didn't want to break her concentration. Day 5, Wednesday afternoon. As the afternoon started to approach, Karolyn reappeared at my door with lunch. I ate it happily, of course, but I knew I had to dictate. Of course you do. I'll rest for now. I decided to have her rest, and she excused herself. Karolyn definitely deserved a break. As the day started, tea and Karolyn fixed me dinner before excusing herself for the night. I yawned and went to bed myself. 2 more days. Day 6. I woke up the next day and stretched yawning. I took in the time. As a knock appeared on my door, how does she know there must be cameras in this room. I looked to my door and said enter, knowing it was Karolyn with food. Karolyn entered the room with a tray covered in delicious breakfast food, and I, of course, ate every last bit of with happiness, blah blah blah. Instructions for the day. What should Karolyn do for the first half of the day? Probably clean, since you didn't do that. Decided to have her clean first. Karolyn nodded and took up her broom, cleaning the halls today. I trusted Karolyn to clean everything up to par with how maids were supposed to clean a house. Thursday afternoon, she appears with lunch. What should she do for the second half of the day? Do the training again. I thought to have her train. Karolyn nodded and excused herself, leaving the room. Out of curiosity, I stuck a glance out of my room and looked to see Karolyn practicing martial arts in the lobby. She had moved out of furniture to do her training. As the day started to end, blah 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 blah. Tomorrow was the last day for her before the fight. Morning started with a fun surprise visit from the man who drove me here. Inspection time. He was very impressed on how clean the mansion was. He almost ran a finger over checking for dust and found absolutely nothing. I looked to Karolyn, who smiled at me before nodding, and watched the man finish his evaluation. As he finished, he gave Karolyn a thumbs up. Did she do her part well enough to pass? That's usually what a thumbs up means. Karolyn started jumping happily. I assumed she did her job right and almost started bouncing with her. She wouldn't get taken away for skimping duties. After inspection, he stopped to look at Karolyn. I watched as she circled her and stood at attention like a soldier to her sergeant. That is how you spell sergeant, right? I don't know. He smiled and nodded, placing a hand on her shoulder. Karolyn, however, let out a tired sigh. For some reason, she looked more wiped out than usual. I looked at Karolyn, noting the dark circle under her eyes. Did the jumping she did exhaust her? The guy looked at me with concern, and I looked back to him with a gulp. Maybe I should let her rest more between training and cleaning. After he left, Karolyn looked to me for the day's assignment. Sheesh, even on her final day, she was determined to win against Red. Better go rest. Don't want to get in trouble. I decided to have her rest. She needed to relax before the fight. Karolyn nodded and excused herself from her room. Now that I was alone, I walked back to my room to eat my breakfast and play some video games. This guy is the worst. Karolyn definitely deserved a break. As the afternoon started to approach, Karolyn reappeared at my door with lunch, blah blah blah, and rest one more time, why not? Decided to have her rest. Karolyn definitely deserved a break. As they started eating, Karolyn fixed my dinner. I yawned and went to bed myself. Tomorrow was the moment of truth. The next morning was full of silence that sent chills down my spine. Today was the day Red and Karolyn would fight to see who was the better maid. I was confident in Karolyn. She had to win. She was so determined to win already. There was no way Red could match her. Karolyn entered my room with breakfast. She presented me with a letter with a red wax seal. I opened it and read aloud the contents of the letter.
Today's battle will take place in the designated area determined by the Code of Maids. Please arrive promptly by noon, or face losing your maid and title as per your disqualification.
What? Designated area? There was a designated area? I looked at Karolyn, who closed her eyes and took a breath. I had assumed she knew where this place was, so I didn't ask. I addressed Nate quietly, not wanting to make us late, and off we went. Somebody's actually in the car with me. The guy who brought me here drove us towards, is there no other butlers in this thing? Towards our destination that I didn't know of. I sat beside Karolyn as she stared ahead at the partition. I looked at her and wanted to speak, but I could tell she was focused on thinking about the match. She must have been nervous as her hands gripped the hem of her dress like vices. Place her in. I didn't want to break her thoughts, but I gently placed my hand over hers and gave it a small squeeze. She didn't break her gaze from the partition, but she released her dress and gently held my hand and squeezed back. A smile. She knew that I believed in her, and my hand squeeze was my silent root for her. I took her silent reply as acknowledgement of such. We drove for a good half an hour before reaching a building that looked like a small arena.
What the? An arena?
Princess Battles Arena was so much better than this. Play Princess Battles. As we stepped inside, we were greeted by a perfect circle of people and maids either cheering or booing at our arrival. I looked around and noted that at least 30 nobles, with each having one or even two maids apiece. I suddenly felt incredibly small. Turned my gaze to across the small arena, seeing Angela stare at me from an elegant chair with Red beside her in her usual. That would have made a great graphic. Just her in her chair and Red leaning on a chair all evil and whatnot. That would have been good instead of this. But edgy game, all that graphic work had to go towards the edgy, I know. I glared at Karolyn and I walked forward towards the ring designating the fighting area. Angela stood and followed Red a step behind her. When we reached the ring, Red and Karolyn continued forward to the fighting area as Angela and I stopped.
Well, middle-class rat, I didn't expect you to show up on time.
Screw you.
Usually, vermin scurry around and forget about important things like this.
Not on your life. I may be from a working class, but I at least worked hard at what I did.
Red, make this quick. This fight will be finished within a minute. Do you understand?
Absolutely, ma'am. So I finally get to show you who the real best maid is. I've been so impatient. I almost snuck out of my master's home to fight you out of pure anxiousness.
Whatever scare tactic you're using won't work, Red. I'm not afraid of you.
Oh, you should be. You really should be. After all, I don't intend to let you win. Your ass is mine.
Come and try to get it.
That could be interpreted in so many ways. Angela stepped back and crossed her arms as I stepped away from the ring, focusing on Karolyn's back. She had to win. She had to win. And I'm guessing when the fight happens, we'll reach the end of the game. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to put a pin in it right here, and we're going to come back with the full fight, try and do it all in one video, and we should hit the ending at that point, unless there's something more to this game and it's a little bit longer than I anticipated. If it is, we'll take a break and we'll know what happens in the next video. In the meantime, if you're enjoying the series so far, leave a like. If you like just the game itself, the links will be in the description where you can go check it out. And as always, VNsnow.com. That is VNsnow.com for my general insanity and EVN stuff as well. Oh, and comments too if you just want to talk about what's going on right now. Anyway, next video, full fight, and maybe we'll get closer to the ending. See you guys then.